Buongiorno. You're listening to Going, Where God is at Work, a podcast where cross-cultural workers discuss everything from faith and fear to finances and faux pas. We're walking out our call to ministry in faraway places and happy to have you join us on the journey. I'm your host, Jesse Pauli, a missions leader serving in Rome, and I'm here with Alessandro Di Leonardo, church planter in Cisterna di Latina, and Jen Williamson, our missiologist who lives and works in Lyon. Good morning, guys. Gal.
Morning.
Good morning.
I was like thrown off for a minute when I was doing the intro because I was like, man, it's been a little bit since we've all been together on a podcast at the same time. So I was like, do I have to say all of this, or how are you guys doing?
Good. I'm recovered from COVID. Had to miss a conference because of it, which was such a bummer. But
it was a mild
glad that
case,
I got
right?
over it quickly. It was pretty mild. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I was sick, but I never felt like it was, more than a bad cold.
Good.
But it's just that reality of, when I tested positive on Thursday and I was supposed to fly out early Saturday morning, and you have to make a call, like, am I going to go or not go? So I canceled my trip. By Monday, I was feeling pretty good. I worked half days, the following week, but it's just I would not have been able to travel on Saturday. And besides, I don't want to contaminate other people. So,
How about you, Alessandro?
It's been very hot here in Italy, humid hot. And I know a lot of churches, even missionaries, that during the summer, they actually fizzle out more of their work. Like they take more of a break. I don't know why I don't follow that. It's just been so busy and it's been so hot. And so the combination is not good. And so I think I'm recovering a little bit.
Yeah, I'm one of those missionaries that fizzles out. So I'm like slowly, first couple weeks of August, we're going to take off completely. But this has been like, still working. Has some pretty big things, but definitely fizzling out.
we have Olympic opening games here this Friday in Paris, opening ceremonies. And then I'm going to a match next week, a women's football match on Wednesday. And then the following week, I'm going to 2 more Olympic matches. So that's exciting to me.
See,
That's huge.
I'm bummed because I love rugby. And so I watched the game yesterday, the beginning of the tournament yesterday, but I was like, this is all happening before the actual opening ceremony. It just seems so strange. Anyways. We won't.
Yeah, there's a lot,
digress
but
into
the
that.
ones that have to have like that tournament style, though, they've got to get going on some of those
Yeah.
because honestly, how are you going to get through that?
But yeah, no, it's great to be in Europe and be so close to be able to take part in stuff like this.
Well, we will have that blessing in 2026. So Italy will host.
The winter, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
cool.
Well, this is kind of a bittersweet episode, I guess we could say, because this is episode 16, and it's going to be our last episode for our first season of doing this podcast together. So yeah, it's been interesting. We've been dove into this whole world of podcasting and trying to figure it out, and we've even listened to some of our own episodes. Some of us listened more than others. It took some others longer to listen, but yeah, it takes a lot of courage to listen back, to get feedback from people about your voice. I never knew how self-conscious I would be about my voice. But yeah, so today we're gonna dive in and kind of look back, reflect a little bit on the podcast and the first season, and look forward to what we have coming in season 2. So why don't we just kick it off with a generic question to everybody? What's one thing that you've learned about podcasting since we started?
Well, Jesse, you already talked on, the importance of listening. I was really reluctant to listen to our podcasts because, I don't know, it's weird to listen to your own voice like that. And I realized one of the reasons I really need to listen to the podcast is because in 2 different podcasts, I tell the same story about shoes. And I'm telling the story about like from a different angle and aspect, but I'm like, oh, Jen, you're already repeating yourself and you're only in season 1. So I need to listen just so I can keep it fresh.
Yes, that is. I don't know if it will help. It might just solidify that story in your head. So now you're just going to keep wanting to repeat it. Oh man. Yeah, for me, I think it's been because we do video call while we're recording the podcast, even though the podcast is audio, so that we can interact and see each other. And no one's going to find this anywhere, but in one of the episodes, we had a little like mishap in the middle of in the podcast. And so I kind of asked Jen to repeat or to to explain something and get us going again. And then she thought we were going to continue with that. So she just kept going. And I was gesturing to her like, yes, meaning stop, but really yes, also meaning like keep going. You're doing a good job. Anyway, so I learned how communication and trying to produce this is so complicated and fun.
I think something you have to remind the people listening is that you're Italian, Jesse, and Italian hand gestures are not universal. They only mean something to us Italians.
That is true.
Yeah, I would say the whole equipment aspect. I don't know why, but of course, I've seen some, I listen to some podcasts, but also some of them are, you can watch them. And I've seen their camera equipment or their mic equipment and all that stuff, but I didn't realize how important they were until we recorded our first episode. And thank God that Jesse has made the effort to edit and learn how to fix our voices as far as volume goes. But I remember listening to the raw file, the first episode, and my laughter, I was like, how could my wife marry me? It was so loud, and it had to do with the microphone being so close to my and not having a good mic. But it was just interesting, like, oh yeah, these things matter to have a good quality, or else people couldn't even get to the first episode if it was all over the place.
Yeah, it's true. And we're not even claiming to have the greatest quality podcast. We're just sharing some of ours. So I can only imagine the quality and production that goes into some of these bigger guys and bigger podcasts. Well, that's great. Why don't we look through some of the episodes, and let's just share maybe like what episode was our favorite and kind of why, and get into a little bit of those stories.
I could start us off. I think the episode that I would say, I wouldn't claim this to be my favorite, but it was definitely what I thought was going to be my least favorite, which was colonialism. I just thought it was such a huge topic, and sometimes it's very controversial, very heavy to kind of to swallow, but once, but I just because I knew the title, I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. But once we kind of, prior to the episode, we did an outline, we talked about it, and then going into the episode actually ended up being a lot of fun. I ended up learning a lot, and it made me realize that I shouldn't be afraid of some of the more difficult topics. We can break it down and we can have honest conversations.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's just been really, really helpful, the idea of partnership and talking through those relationships, and the ability to kind of, I don't know if classify them but like to categorize and kind of understand, like some partnerships just go to that associate level and you're just kind of, of each other, you're part of maybe the same network. But then the idea of like, then the other partnerships, you actually like join in with something that's going on. Either someone comes and joins an effort that you're putting forth, or you join into an effort that they're putting forth. And then that kind of top level of where like we come together and we start and do something together from the ground up, working alongside each other. And that's been really helpful for me to think through and to realize that not all of like partnership isn't just one way. And I used to use that word like, oh, we can be partners, but it was very kind of foggy to understand what that meant. And so now it helps me have a little bit more understanding.
Yeah. I really liked both of those episodes as well. And I liked the one talking about money too, just because I think it's a taboo. And I think sometimes there's these things that we think we really can't say or we shouldn't talk about. And then they actually become like, they can do anything from like lead us to sin in the sense that we might become secretive or hide things and not want to disclose things, or unwilling to express our needs, to make desires known, or even like not wanting to share great opportunities that we have. Like maybe I wouldn't say I'm going to the Olympics if I was worried that my supporters were worried that I'm spending their hard-earned money on, tickets to the Olympic Games. So I think I really liked the opportunity to talk about something that was like, can be a taboo, and giving a space to talk about those things.
So what would be the most memorable moment that you had during our podcast? For me, I think, and there's going to be a theme to all of my answers to these questions, because really this concept of partnership has been the idea that's really stuck. And I think it's because of the time of ministry and what we're going through, trying to close some partnerships that probably weren't in a good spot, trying to start new ones, different things like that. And so I just realized as we were talking through that, like, I don't know, I had this aha moment where I was like, oh, that actually, I thought we were collaborating, but we weren't collaborating. We were cooperating, or we were just associating together. So like when I had that moment, even with Alessandro, when I realized like, oh, this project that I helped him with was more of us cooperating with him over collaborating. And that's okay, and that's good, but it was helpful when I had that kind of aha moment, like, okay, not all partnerships need to look exactly the same, and not always do we have to start fresh together. Sometimes we can just join in on what someone else is doing, or just it can still be a partner even if we're not day in and day out communicating and talking, but we just know of each other and we kind of occasionally do things together or are part of the same thing. So the partnership thing has, I'll be a broken record in this recording because I'm going to bring it up multiple times.
I love that you go away with this idea of partnerships, Jesse, because since the title of my dissertation was Missions With, I guess if there's one thing that I hope people get out of this season, where we went through my dissertation, it would be the importance of partnerships. I think for me, the most memorable moment was like literally a moment when we were recording where I started to tell a story that I hadn't planned to tell, and that was really vulnerable, about a moment when I recognized some racism that I was exhibiting in my own life. And just to realize, one, that I'm obviously comfortable enough with you guys that we got into a conversation that I just sort of unveiled something that's, maybe something you would share with a close friend. And then the realization that, oh, but this is going to be a podcast that anybody in the world can listen to. And here I've just confessed a sin publicly. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think we want to get into airing our dirty laundry or anything on this podcast. That's not what this is about. But it was memorable for me because when I think that's part of the redemptive process, sometimes to be able to own something and to acknowledge it. So yeah, I didn't do that to air dirty laundry, but I was surprised, and it's a memorable moment for me because I was like, oh my gosh, I just told that story.
Yeah, and I believe I speak for both Jesse and I. We both were very appreciative of you sharing that moment. I think it helped us also to reflect and think, and I think anybody listening. So really, thank you, Jen, for that. It was memorable for us too, in a good, really good way. And for me, I would just say, not that I need to learn all the terminologies that are out there, but sometimes having a word for something really helps put things into perspective. And I think for me, the word has to be necessary stranger. Actually, my wife and I use that often. It wasn't a concept that we didn't know about, but it certainly didn't have a name for it. And so, not to get into deep of what it is, but really to be able to understand a necessary stranger, somebody who's from the outside to speak within, inside, is super helpful, especially when you are the necessary stranger, but then you start not becoming the stranger, and you need other voices then in your life. And so that to me was huge, and I really am blessed to have learned that word and understanding its meaning behind it.
Yeah, I hope everyone like that's listening to this realizes like we're not like influencers or podcasters. I mean, we are in a sense now that we have a podcast, but like we're humans. We're real people that do ministry. And so I think your vulnerability, Jen, of sharing, that moment is just another moment of seeing like we're human beings. And what you're expressing to Alessandro is, I just think I hope that our listeners understand that like we're not anybody special, and we're not pretending to be above anybody else. We're just sharing what we're learning and what we're seeking to see God's kingdom come here on earth. And I think that's what's been probably, if I could add another memorable moment, is just I'm just been surprised by how much I've been learning through this process about missions. Because like I studied missions in school, I've read missions books, but like I've felt this stretching me in different ways, which has been really good. And I, even if no one listened to this, but we just had these conversations, I feel like it would have been worth my time because I've grown in that.
Yes.
Me too, Jesse.
All right. So that being said, let's kind of look at what are some of the biggest ideas that have come out of this season that we want to, there's big impactful ideas that have come out that maybe we want to look at more, or just, as you wish to to take that question?
For me, when we did that episode on the Luzon report on the current state of global Christianity or whatever it was, and those two big ideas that we talked about a little bit that came out of that study, which were, in the questions of what does it mean to be human and what is a digital age, and looking at the responses to those questions in a way that talks about, how does the gospel intersect with those things? Where does the gospel intersect with those things? What does the gospel mean to those things? And I feel like, man, we just barely scratched the surface on those really, really big ideas. And yet I hope that those big ideas are kind of influencing and present almost in all of the conversations that we're having as we go forward. I mean, here we are doing a podcast that is a big part of the digital age, and yet we are humans with flesh and blood trying to live out the realities of the gospel in these faraway places. And so that's what we're talking about. And so I guess those big ideas I want to keep in the back of our mind as we're going forward and think about how we can bring them back into episodes going forward, or where those thoughts and ideas are still going to be impacting on what we're talking about moving forward.
Yeah, kind of building off from that thought that we are bringing forward ideas. I think that's the one that was something that came out, and I realized is that, I'm doing missions for the past 5 years, if we could, the overseas missions. And just to be able to kind of talk about 15 episodes and then realizing we just scratched the surface. There's so much more to talk about. And even each episode, we didn't have enough time to talk about those in detail. Just made me realize the complexity of what we were living out. We do it every day, maybe not every specific component, but we are living it out. And when we're trying to talk about it and divide it and make it more systematic, we realize, wow, there's so many components going into it. The complexity is huge, but it's great because then we have more episodes ahead of us.
It's interesting too, Jen, I like that you're bringing up the human and digital component. I didn't think of this originally when I thought of answering this question, but now I'm thinking of it as, like, for me, the big idea that I took away is, like, we can't do this alone. But then, I was thinking of humans. We need to partner with other humans. We need to partner with God. But now I'm thinking, like, we can't do this alone. We need to also leverage the digital to reach the nations too. And so I think it is something that will be in the forefront of our thoughts and ideas. And I think sometimes we get afraid of some of the complexity, as you're saying, Alessandra, rather be the complexity of, of people or the complexity of technology. But really, we can leverage and steward those things for the good of the gospel going forward. And I think the more we have conversations like this, the more. And we really would love feedback and interaction from others, because the more we can flesh out and talk through these things, the more everybody learns and grows and becomes more effective with the message of the gospel. Wow, guys, it's so crazy as we're doing this to think that's been a whole season's gone by. I just remember when we started brainstorming about this. So we kind of touched on it a little bit. Alessandra, you mentioned just the idea of your wife and you talking about the necessary stranger more and being able to have that terminology. But can we give some examples of how, this first season and how just what we've learned about missions has impacted our ministries, and what might we have changed or implemented? Or
definitely want to mention another thing, but just kind of to follow up with what you said, Jesse, regarding the necessary stranger. We just had an intern with us for a whole year, a Gen Z, and so really to be able to see it from their perspective and hearing some of a lot of it was more questions, but questions that I either assumed an answer for, or I was wondering why they're asking this question. And that was super helpful for a whole year. And that really helped me realize, not everyone lives in my brain. And and so I need to communicate some of these things. And so that was super helpful, having that necessary stranger. And now we have a new intern. And so it's helping me be a better leader with that intern and then with the church. But for me, the takeaway or the thing that really helped me, it's not even a new idea. It's it's the reminder that we have to keep doing this, which is contextualizing. Learned about it before going into missions. I've been studying here while I'm in missions, but even just having that episode and contextualizing and hearing some of your stories, realizing, yeah, I need to keep doing it. I think I stopped. It's a good reminder that never ends, and we have to keep improving it. And so I was thankful for that.
Yeah, for me, it was really helpful to interact with, here I did this dissertation, lots and lots of research, but to interact with you guys around that subject matter made me realize how much more there is to learn and to understand. And I guess I've changed in the sense that I feel much more curious. And rather than, I don't know that I ever had a sense of like, now I'm an expert and I know it all. But I had done so much research and gone so deep into some of this stuff that I think I had become sort of an answer person in approaching a lot of questions and problems and challenges with missions. And interacting around it made me realize, no, I still need to be a question person around these things because there's so many complexities and nuances that I still don't understand. And we serve a living God who is active and dynamic every day of our lives. And I'm being transformed into the image of Christ. So I'm not the same person that I was even when I wrote that dissertation. And the world around us is changing. So interacting with you around these ideas has really helped me to get back to a curious posture.
Alessandro, did you hear that? I heard we should get honorary doctorates because we were able to help the doctor be curious. And no, that's awesome, Jen. I think that's great. And I do feel I could actually, I feel like I could see that even throughout the season. Like at the beginning, it did feel more like, yeah, you were the kind of had answers, but then as we went on, it did seem like I could see that more curiosity growing. And that's really cool to hear that even, it's a reminder that we're all lifelong learners and we should keep doing that. For me, I would say the sentence I've been using even outside of the podcast is like, as a missions leader, and someone who's trying to help missionaries succeed and be effective and stay on the field as long as they can, I've started to walk away with this idea that I should view myself as a broker of partnerships. And how can I, as a new missionary comes, how can I walk them through partnering with what God's doing here, whether that be with other missionaries, with locals, a pastor, and how can I help, throughout all the complexities of that, setting their expectations, setting our partners' expectations, and helping to I feel like a matchmaker in that sense. Like, you're kind of arranging these marriages of missionaries with partners. But because I think I've learned that I wish that would have happened for us to that way. And then I just see how, like I said earlier, the need that we can't think that we're going to come in and do it alone. We need to work together in all kinds of ways. So yeah, definitely a broker of partnerships is kind of, it's funny. I'll just tell a little side story. So I told one of my Italian colleagues or peers, he also is a missions leader. I said one day in passing, like, I feel like I'm herding cats. And he was like, wait, what? And I said, yeah, like as a missions leader, I feel like I'm herding cats because I have all these independent, maverick type people that want to go do their own thing. And I'm trying to like herd them together. And he is like, oh, and so now he like says that phrase, like every time I see him, he says, I've just been herding cats today or whatever. But now I think like I'm thinking more in line with this, like brokering partnerships over. This is a little more positive than herding cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're talking to people who don't know the English language well, they might be thinking you're breaking partnerships. Just saying.
Because broker sounds like breaking. Yeah, okay, yeah. I can see that. That's true. I don't know what the translation to broker is, even in Italian. Anyways.
Yeah. But I wanted to kind of say, knowing you, Jesse, and working with you, I also have a desire to kind of see missions partners and work together, but you definitely need a stamina for it. And I really think you have it. And I thank God for that because I've seen you the way you have already helped cats instead of hurting them. And so I really appreciate knowing you and doing that,
Thank you.
having seen you do that.
Thanks. So to wrap up this episode, should we start talking about season 2? What the people can look forward to hearing?
Yeah. So, yeah, we've started to think and plan a little bit, haven't we, around the next season. From my perspective, it reminds me of how math is taught in France. I went to high school in the U.S., and when I was studying in the U.S., you would have your freshman year, you would have geometry, and then your sophomore year, you would have algebra, and then your junior year, maybe trigonometry, and then your senior year, calculus. And it was broken out by category like that. But when we moved to France, and my sons went to high school in France, it's different here. They do like sort of introductory geometry, introductory algebra, introductory trig, introductory calc the first year. And then the next year, they go down the next level on all of those subjects. And then the next year, even deeper. And I feel like this first year was like, okay, we just touched lightly on a bunch of different topics related to missions. But now we have the opportunity to kind of go down to the next level. And let's go, I think we're looking at revisiting some topics like evangelism and discipleship and church planting and things like that, but really digging deeper. And I'm really looking forward to the aspect of, I think we're going to try and really bring some practical tools. We're going to introduce some resources that have been helpful to us and share how we've used them, or invite others to do that as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting more practical in season 2.
I think the first thing I want to say for going to season 2, and I might be outvoted for this, but I think we should start using sound effects. But that's up to you, Jesse, because you're our editor, and so if you think that makes sense, but it could, especially in this season when we're celebrating, having some sort of sound effect in the back. I don't know if that will pick it up, but that was awesome. So in regards to going forward, I think having heard your perspective, Jen, and Jesse, your perspective, adding voices to my already filled brain with my own voices, it was super helpful. And so I think going forward to even having, I know we had one person join us for an interview, but even having more people speak into some of the topics, I look forward to that. And I hope that we can have more guests help us, and not necessarily looking for experts, but looking for people who are living it out and working through it, and not having all the answers, but having some ideas and thoughts. And to me, I'm excited to hearing those.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on the idea of the having more voices. I don't want to hear more voices in my head. I don't know what you were talking about there, Alessandro, but yes, I definitely would love to interview more voices and have more people speaking into these topics. And I think what I'm looking forward to is, as we go deeper, to explore some of those best practices, what kind of structures and systems and habits are people creating as they try and go deeper in those. And so I think the idea of tools is good. I think the idea of these kind of non-tangible structures and habits and practices are good. And then to be able to talk this out and have other people, that's going to be great. So we're gonna take a month or so off from recording, so there won't be anything in August, and we'll come back probably the second half of September. We'll start getting some things up, and in the meantime, please give your feedback. We would love to interact with you. If you can shoot us a message or a comment on any of the apps that we're on, any of the hosting platforms, we would love to engage you in that way, and also look forward to hearing kind of what are some things you would like to hear about in season 2. Are there topics or people that you think we should interview or talk to? And please feel free to send those our way. If you're listening to this and you just want to send us a private note because you know us and you have our phone number or email, that's fine too. But if you can even leave a comment, we would love that. And Spotify has a thing. if you listen on the Spotify app, where you can go in, and I'm almost positive you can leave a voice recording like of something you would like to say to us, and we could play that and respond in the podcast. I think that would be really cool. So thank you guys so much for listening to season 1 of Going, where God is at work. We look forward to season 2. And in the meantime, please follow, rate, and share this podcast with all of your friends and family.